easy does it. Okay, I like that we couldn't find the Bee Gees CD that we usually set the camera on, so like, oh, here's a DVD of Disco. That works. How was your day, sweetie?
I just got off work, so...
I know, we met down here to, like, a secret meeting in the parking garage. Yeah. Actually, that's really appropriate considering the movie that I just saw.
Yeah, I didn't see it, and I'm tired, so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to... provide any insight in this.
You could, well, as an expert on Frank, the Irishman she ran, it was important that you be here for this.
I also haven't seen a lot of Scorsese movies.
Really? Have you seen, like, Goodfellas, Taxi Driver, Casino, After Hours, Boxcar Bertha?
Departed?
The Departed?
I saw that one.
It would have been great if, like...
He did Hugo, right?
Yeah, he did Hugo.
I saw that.
Yeah. Hugo's really good.
So, yeah.
I'd like it if the one that you saw was, like, Kundun or something.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, honestly, you could probably take a nap right now if you wanted to.
Yeah, I know. I might as well. I'm going to be pretty lifeless in this. I'm really tired. And I'm hungry. I just got off work. I was, like, really cranky as soon as Brad came in the car.
Well, that's honestly usually the case. No,
it's not.
Anytime I enter a room, your happiness instantly goes away.
No, that's not true. I was just like, can we just do this? Well, when I got to the garage...
usually you do also say, can we just do this?
Well, I went down to the garage, and I didn't realize I sent the text message, and it didn't send because we're in the garage.
Oh!
And so I was sitting here, and I was like, what the fuck
Where is this asshole?
And then I was like, oh, it's still sending. So I had to drive all the way back up on the upper level of the garage.
Did you really?
Yeah. So I could call you. Yeah.
Well, no wonder you're not in a very good mood. What if I was like, hey, honey, when you get off work, will you go into the city to see this movie with me at like a 9 o'clock show?
That's another reason why I didn't want to see this. It's like 3 hours.
It's 3.5 hours.
No. Even if
but
it's
you
good,
sat through 3 hours of Endgame, and I know how much you loved that.
Well, according to Scorsese, that's not art.
You are Team Marvel and not Team Martin Scorsese, is what you're saying. No. Since you went to go see Endgame and not The Irishman.
No.
No, I understand, like, Scorsese being annoyed. Like, the fact that, like, I could go across the street to a movie theater to see Jexy or Arctic Dogs or Playing with Fire, but basically to do this movie, it's gonna be on Netflix when this movie should be in theaters.
So it's just a Netflix movie?
Yeah, that's primarily where it's going. It is.
I thought he was
it's kind of like
Netflix.
No. I think Spielberg is the one who kind of said stuff about Netflix. I don't remember Scorsese saying a lot about Netflix, but it's sort of like last year with Roma, where Roma was in a handful of theaters. Its main distribution is Netflix. Even at the beginning of the movie, it had the Netflix logo in front of it.
Yeah, I get why I don't want to talk about, like, my opinions on it.
Yeah, we won't get into that tangent.
People are gonna, like, attack me with my opinion, I'm sure. But I can get why he would be frustrated as well.
This is a movie that, again, like I said, I wanted to travel into the city to go play this, because I knew it would be playing in the city. Because it's the new Martin Scorsese movie. I want to see this in the theater. I don't want to, I was like, oh, it's afternoon, I got some hours to kill. I'll just pop it up on my TV.
on the screen.
Yeah, like, I'll pop it up on my TV on Netflix. Like, I did that last year with Roma, and I sat there watching Roma most of the time going, I would rather be seeing this in a theater.
Right.
So Roma's a good movie, don't get me wrong, but I was like, man, I wish I could have traveled somewhere to actually see this on a big screen.
Some movies are just meant for the big screen.
Oh, yeah, and this is a movie... I mean, due to its length, you can tell that this is an epic. But if you are a big Scorsese fan, I mean, it is through and through Scorsese porn. It is the mafia. It's going through about 50, 60 years worth of this guy's story. You got De Niro in there. You got Harvey Keitel. Joe Pesci's back in this movie. The only thing really missing from this is, like, the Rolling Stones on the soundtrack and, like, maybe a cameo by Leonardo DiCaprio. So it's a movie about... Robert De Niro plays this hitman named Frank Sheeran, who's the guy who's claimed to be the one to kill... Jimmy Hoffa.
Sorry, I feel like I just sneezed.
Oh, no, it's okay. You are taking a nap. Who killed Jimmy Hoffa back in 75, 76. So it is a big story about this guy's life, and he's kind of recounting it from an old age home.
Oh,
so
sorry.
there's, ooh, I have an idea.
Just in case.
Honey, I want to live in an old age home.
Message failed to
So
send to
that-
Brad.
Nice.
Sorry.
So that 50 years later, I can, like, tell a story about my wild mafia days so yeah, it's like old De Niro sitting there, and he's kind of like talking at the camera with his old makeup on and glasses, and it's kind of funny because it looks like you're visiting grandpa, and he's like just telling you all these wild mafia stories. Like,
Yes.
so there I was, I just shot Johnny Bones twice in the head, boom, dead. Okay, grandpa, you gonna get your candy bar today? And so a lot of it is his life, starting out with him as a truck driver getting hooked up with this crime family led by Pesci, and also Harvey Keitel is in the movie, and him going from just kind of this blue collar truck driver to then working with the union, becoming very close with Jimmy Hoffa, who Al Pacino plays in the film, and their friendship and relationship together, and how much De Niro and De Niro's family in the movie admired and looked up to Jimmy Hoffa, and also what Jimmy Hoffa meant at that time period.
So this is based off a true story. I really don't know anything of what this movie's about.
So you'd never heard of Jimmy Hoffa? Because the movie actually brings this up. Like, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Like, the movie does bring this up where...
maybe I don't know it by name, but if you tell me what the
you would probably
is.
catch references, because he was president of the Teamsters for a lot of years, and then went missing in the mid-1970s, and has been missing ever since. And there's theories of what... I mean, it's obvious he was... The mob, like, killed this guy.
Right. Swimming with the fishes.
Yeah, so there's... if people know of Jimmy Hoffa now, it's usually like all the disappearance jokes and things like that.
Sounds kind of familiar now that you're saying it over and over again.
They bring this up in the movie where De Niro's talking like young people nowadays might not know Jimmy Hoffa, but here's how big he was at this time. There's a part when he's older and in a retirement home in the early 2000s, and his nurse, who's very young, sees a picture of him with Hoffa, and she's like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "Who's that? What do you mean, who's that?" But you would know some references. There's a part in Bruce Almighty where he makes one of his miracles is he makes him find the body of Jimmy Hoffa.
Okay.
Remember in Ghost when Carl was they took all the money from Carl, and he was frantically on the computer. Sam Wheat says they're gonna bury you next to Jimmy Hoffa. There was an early 90s movie in 1992 that Danny DeVito directed that was a biopic on Jimmy Hoffa, and Jack Nicholson played him.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty underrated movie. There was one in the 70s where it's called Fist, where Stallone played a Hoffa type character.
As you're explaining this movie, I'm like, I think this is what John Travolta wanted Gotti to be.
That is one of my notes. That is seriously one of my notes here. I made sure.
That's why we're together.
Yeah, I made sure to write down notes because I knew you wanted to get upstairs.
I was like, okay, I know that. It sounds like he's like,
yes, that was my next note. Yes, that is what this is what the movie Gotti was trying to be.
Yeah, it's like, you don't know who, like when you were saying, who was it that you were quoting? Like, you don't know who this guy, what was it?
Frank Sheeran, who De Niro plays
I was like,
in the
that
movie.
sounds like those guys.
About Jimmy Hoffa?
Yeah, I was like, is he talking to the audience when that was happening, or?
A little, like, not directly, but he's kind of sitting there looking, like, slightly off.
I was like, is he next to the... I love this city.
This city.
I was like, this is what Gotti wanted to be.
Yeah, right down to... There are so many things that this movie does way better than Gotti, which goes without saying. It's a Scorsese movie.
Right. I'm not
and it's a
saying,
Scorsese mob movie. But no, right down to there are characters, and here's one specific thing that this movie does way better than Gotti, which is... Do you remember how in Gotti there would be a character in the movie who was maybe only in it once or twice, and it would flash up the person's name on screen? Yeah. This movie does something similar, but does it wildly better. Like, it will do it with characters who are maybe in a scene or two, or maybe a few others. But one thing it adds to it adds their name and also how the person died, which was usually, like, some murder or some hit or something like that. One guy, it says, like, he was pretty well liked. He died of old age. Like,
so there's, like, narration throughout the whole thing?
Yeah. Like, Goodfellas, Casino, like that.
Well,
there is.
You're going to reference something I don't know.
That'll happen. But, yeah, like, there is. But, yeah, so... Just adding that, like what happened to these people after, adds so much more weight to putting their name on screen.
It's like, oh, totally. Wow, this is the mob.
Also, what this movie does way better, the makeup. So they like it starts out and they do de-aging on De Niro and Joe Pesci. There were a couple times where I'm like, this is a little jarring. But 98% of the time, I would forget that that's what they did, and it went together pretty seamlessly with everything else going on. This is a movie that's going over several freaking decades, so by the end of it, the characters are like in their 80s and dying, and the old age makeup they have on them is really good. So what decade does it start in? It ends in the early 2000s, but I want to say it starts 40s or 50s, maybe. Mm-hmm. You kind of, instead of putting a date on the screen,
it's kind of more of a show don't tell kind of thing.
Sort of. You could get an idea of when it was by looking in the background, and there'd be a movie theater marquee.
Yeah, show don't tell. Like kind of just seeing like the clothing, the cars, the movies.
The movies that were playing. Yeah. There's a part that has to do with the Kennedy assassination because Jimmy Hoffa hated the Kennedys, so it gets into the Kennedy assassination at one point, so I don't know when it is. Also around when Jimmy Hoffa goes missing, so it wasn't difficult to kind of narrow down roughly when certain scenes were taking place.
So it was pretty smooth, like, storytelling.
I thought so. Yeah, I mean, it's a movie. It's a long movie, so you have a bunch of different arcs in the movie, from De Niro with his job and his relationship with Pesci and especially Hoffa and Jimmy Hoffa, going from this like rock star Teamsters president to then being in prison for 4 years, getting out, wanting his job back, and finding it difficult because the mafia is preferring the other guy who's in there and are trying to get Hoffa to bow out, and so it's basically just this clash of egos going on.
How are they trying to get him to bow out? Like, just
by being the mafia, like, kind of going through De Niro a lot. No, not like that. Like, oh, so subtly being like, look, people are saying things, all right? It is what it is. You got to do the right thing. You know, that kind of thing. Right. And it's a very subdued film compared to, I know you haven't seen these, but compared to...
Well, you're talking to not just me.
Goodfellas, Casino, Mean Streets. It's a quieter movie, especially with some of the... like, Joe Pesci in this movie. It's really... One, it's cool seeing him back again acting, and also he's not, even though this is another Scorsese mafia movie, he's not playing Tommy from Goodfellas or Nicky from Casino. He's not being the kind of over the top hothead that he's kind of known for playing in mafia movies. He's more like the Paul Sorvino Goodfellas type in this movie. The hothead is very much Pacino in this movie. Pacino's great in this film. I mean, he's playing Jimmy Hoffa as Al Pacino playing Jimmy Hoffa, and that's kind of awesome. So you have Pacino looking like Jimmy Hoffa and delivering these speeches, which I mean, Hoffa was certainly great at anyway, but with that extra Pacino touch to it. Kind of like when Nicholson played him in the early 90s.
I haven't seen a lot of Pacino movies either.
This is less like I said, it's kind of a different beast than Casino or Goodfellas or Mean Streets. It's not, like I said, it is kind of a quieter movie. There's not a lot of like montages where it's playing like the Rolling Stones or something like that. Like,
are they mostly playing older versions?
You mean the actors?
Yeah, of the characters they're playing.
It kind of goes. I mean, it's spanning over like 5 or 6 decades. I was just wondering if it's like one of those movies where it's like kind of
doing the same thing that Scorsese, like the kind of movies he used to do when he was younger, and everyone's kind of younger in the movies, and then maybe now he's doing it now, and everyone's kind of a little more...
I think it's just mainly to give it kind of a different feel than some of his other Mafia
right,
movies.
So it's not too formulaic, maybe.
No, not really. Like, I mean, yeah, it definitely has the tropes of a mob movie. You'll see similarities in this that you see to his other movies, but it's not as flashy as some of the other ones. This is more in the vein of something like Once Upon a Time in America, the Sergio Leone movie, than, again, like Goodfellas. And I do like those other movies better than this one. I had a great time watching this. Like, it was great sitting there watching this epic 3.5-hour Scorsese movies with all these guys back together again doing this movie, playing off of each other. And I was entertained through and through with the movie. It's not as quotable of a movie as like Goodfellas or Casino. It's if I'm gonna sit down to watch one, I will most likely be watching Mean Streets or Goodfellas or Casino or one of those films than this. But it's absolutely worth going to check it out in theaters, like to support this kind of movie being in theaters.
Right, something that's, not an Avengers movie or something.
Yeah.
Would you say that he could have trimmed some of the movie?
Yeah. Did it have to be 3.5 hours? No. Like, you could kind of see especially in like the last 20 minutes where it was like, this should probably wrap up pretty soon. It is one of those films where it's like, it's 3.5 hours, not necessarily because it should be, but because it can be.
Right.
And I appreciate the gravitas and the balls on that.
Yeah,
like,
Well, if you're Martin Scorsese, I think you can...
Yeah, you can make the movie as long as you want it. Like, could there be parts that could maybe be trimmed? Sure. But I love going to the theater to see a 3.5-hour Martin Scorsese Mafia movie.
What movies that are really long can earn the right to be that long, like Ben-Hur or something, or
like the old epics?
Or
yeah, you want those old epics
like
to be that long. Newer movies? Off the top of my head, what's some long movies we've seen? I was totally fine with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood being almost 3 hours long. When a movie is that long and you still love it and it's still great, I'm fine with however long that it needs to be. Like I said, like
I'm fine with epics as long as it's like is doing it, like you said, doing it because it shouldn't be, not because it can be, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, the movie does have a lot of weight to it, certainly, and it is a 3.5-hour film. Again, because Martin Scorsese can make a 3.5-hour Mafia movie. Can it be shorter? Certainly, but...
Would that make the movie better, though?
No, I would come away with it probably feeling the exact same way.
Okay.
I would. I didn't leave this movie going, that needed to be 90 minutes shorter. Okay. I didn't think about that at all. Like, the only part where I was kind of like, you could probably lose this, is Anna Paquin is in the movie as, De Niro's, like, disapproving daughter. And it was one of those things where it was like, it needed more than what was in there, because because you understand why she doesn't like her dad, and later a lot of it has to do with her affection toward and her admiration for Jimmy Hoffa. But it's one of those things where if this was in the movie, there should have been more of it, or just not at all.
Right. I get what you're saying.
And that was kind of how I felt about her in this movie, where she was almost kind of two-dimensionally disapproving of everything De Niro did. There's so many scenes.
I get what you're saying, yeah.
There's so many scenes where she doesn't even have lines. She's just
maybe it was longer and they just cut it out.
It could have been, yeah. That easily could have been. And like I said, once it was like the last 20 minutes, I wasn't sitting there, my leg bouncing or anything like that, but I was like, yeah, this could probably be wrapping up before too long. I never had to use the restroom during it. I was proud of myself.
I know, you have the bladder of an infant.
She's right.
Yeah, you
And
have
it's
to
a
pee
good
all the
thing, too,
time.
because I left my diapers back at the apartment. I learned the hard way. They don't like it when you shit in the movie theater seats.
So would you recommend it, then?
Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely. I went into the city to go see this, because, yeah, like, it was only playing in the city. It was total... I left this morning to, like, go see, or late morning, really, to see, like a 1 o'clock show or something like that. Or originally I was going to see something with Rob earlier, but I haven't been feeling very good. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, he just got over being sick.
Right.
So I'm like, let's postpone Jojo Rabbit. I'll see this movie by myself and infect whoever's in the theater and you. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I work with kids. I'm pretty sure I'm sick. I just...
You're patient zero.
Yeah.
If I infect anyone in this audience, I'll be fine with. Because, yeah, like, it was packed.
Audience sucked, or?
Some people in the audience did. Like, so I got there, like, fairly early, and I was sitting there, and I found the perfect seat in there. By the time, when I got there, there wasn't that many people in there, if really anyone at all. And so I go in there. I put my coat down on the seat. Like I said, I had the perfect seat in there, especially for seeing a 3.5-hour movie. And I get up. I put my coat on the seat. I get up. I go get something to drink, and I go get popcorn. I come back, and this older couple is sitting not in my seat, but in the two next to it.
Oh, so you're in between?
No, they didn't sit on either side of my seat.
I was going to say, that's like, weird.
No, it was like my seat and then those two, and I got my coat, and my soda fell out, and they're like, I think you dropped something, and I'm like, yeah. I was pissed. Like I was, because that's such a passive-aggressive dick move. I would have respected it more if they just took my seat. Instead, it was a near-empty theater at this point. You're fucking strangers sitting next to mine. What do you think I'm gonna do? Like, I'm gonna awkwardly sit next to this older couple sitting there? Like,
were they not assigned seats?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't at all. So I'm like, I actually would have respected it more if they took my seat instead of doing this passive-aggressive, oh, he'll just move.
Okay, boomer.
Who, me?
No, I'm talking about the older people. Oh. They're actually probably boomers.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm kidding. I don't use that phrase.
But, so I sat behind, and, like, I was behind him, and the dude was kept, like, looking at his phone, like, through the movie, like, holding it up, not even doing anything with it.
Was he recording the movie?
No. That would have been funny. But no, he just hold it up, like, not doing anything with it, like, brightness throughout the film. Look, I look at my clock sometimes in movies, too, but I do it discreetly, like, under my coat or in my pocket. And he was, like, an annoying eater, too, like, sucking on each one of his fingers.
Ew.
One guy, eventually, the movie did get really packed. That made me happy to see this movie, like, seriously packed, because it was by the end of it. Except one guy in the back who answered a phone call halfway into the movie. Oh, yeah, God. That happened.
Self-entitled assholes.
So I really do recommend this. Like, it's like going to the theater and, like, binge watching this cool mafia show done by Martin Scorsese, just to see all these guys back together again, and also in a mob movie, one that's really telling this very large character study between Frank Sheeran, Jimmy Hoffa, and all these other guys in the film. Like, I'm really glad I went to the theater to go see this.
Well, maybe we should binge watch some Scorsese movies that I haven't seen. I've been meaning
I didn't realize you hadn't seen Goodfellas or Taxi Driver.
That's why I'm the perfect person to talk about this movie with. I was planning on watching Taxi Driver a few months ago on Netflix, but I was babysitting an infant, so I was
definitely want to see Taxi Driver.
Yeah, I was like, it's not because I thought the infant would be like looking at the movie and knowing anything going on, but I was like, I'm gonna have to change the diaper all the time and do this and that, and I was like, man, I shouldn't.
Right.
But at some point, I'd like to.
Oh, hell yeah, we'll have a Martin Scorsese day. Hell yeah, I'm totally, I think I still have my box set upstairs. But, well, this was fun. You ready to go upstairs then?
Oh yeah, I am. I'm ready to eat. I'm tired. I want to take off my makeup and...
You know, I hear there's an advanced screening of something tonight if you want to go see it. All right, baby. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, everyone, take care. We'll be back with reviews of, let's see, Frozen 2, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and 21 Bridges. I think that's what's up this weekend. So thanks a bunch, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.